I want to take you to something that is seemingly totally disconnected, but very connected. There is a Gemara in Sota, and the Gemara talks about a conversation that took place between Pharaoh and three men when he was going to present the final solution that he had. And the three men were Bil'am, Eov, and Yitro. And the Gemara tells a story, quite incredible. Hitler didn't invent anything. Not even the yellow star came from Hitler. Not even gas. I mean, he didn't invent anything at all. No, First World War there was gas in already. And Pharaoh asked them, what is your opinion? I want to destroy the Jewish people. What have you got to say? And so Bilam kind of, bravo, that's fantastic. Speaking my thoughts exactly, I'm with you. Yitro is absolutely disgusted, and he gets up and he walks out. So Eov is left. Eov's looking around the table. Eov is looking around the table, and the vote is 2-0. So he's not going to win, right? He's not going to be able to do anything. So Eov does the good English thing and he abstains. And the Gemara says that each of these men were rewarded or punished measure for measure. So Bilam, who wanted to kill the Jewish people, was killed by the Jewish people. Yitro, who lost a lot of honor, lost a lot of kavod by walking out, so he's got a parasha named after him. That's a pretty good parasha. I wouldn't mind having the parasha of Matan Torah named after me. Parashat Milston, that'd be great. He has a parasha named after him. That's what a kavod, right? Matan Torah. So what happened to Eov? Now, not the whole story of Eov. The Gemara says that God visited upon Eov boils, and he was in great pain. And that's the Gemara finishes there. I had a rabbi many years ago in England. His name was Rabbi Isaac Bernstein. You might have heard of him. I just remembered it 25 years since he died. My eldest son is named after him, Yitzchak. There's a real, very, very close to him. And he suggested he was Doresh B'Chesed Elyon. He was a credible darshan and with an incredible memory. And he said as follows. He said, when God came up to Eov after the vote, he said to Eov, why don't you say anything? Why don't you say anything? And Eov said, well, it was 2-0. What was the point? So God says, okay. God gives him boils. He gives him these terrible skin disease. And Eov is in agony. And God comes to visit him. And he's screaming from agony. And God says to Eov, why are you screaming? He says, well, I've got these boils and they hurt. He says, yeah, but does your screaming help you feel better? He says, no. But when something hurts, you scream. He says, yeah, when something hurts, you scream. An incredible comparison to Majdanek and Treblinka. Treblinka right in the middle of nowhere. You wouldn't know it was there if you didn't know it was there. You have to follow the signs and then walk, and totally hidden. Sobibor was the same. Belzec a bit less, but still hidden places. Majdanek isn't the name of a camp, it's the name of a suburb. The area is called Maidan. This camp was built in a neighborhood of Lublin. As we walk towards gas chambers, you will see houses that back on to gas chambers. Houses that were there. We have been walking here on a number of occasions and had seen young women with their children in prams taking an afternoon stroll through a death camp. Children riding their bikes through a death camp. Amazing. And there's a date that is a very interesting date because I don't really keep my English birthday, but my English birthday is the 6th of July. The 6th of July 1938 is not my English birthday. I'm not that old, but on the 6th of July 1938 a conference took place. It's called the Evian Conference. At that conference, the nations of the world sat together to discuss the Jewish problem. There was a Jewish problem already in Czechoslovakia, in Austria. There was a problem, and they saw where things were going. It was before Kristallnacht, but they saw where things were going. And I don't know whether you've ever read the minutes of this conference. The Australians, you know what they said there? The Australians, we don't have a Jewish problem, we don't need a Jewish problem. The Canadians, what they said there? There wasn't a country in the world. England took tens of thousands of children, and there wasn't a country in the world that wanted to know. It's shocking. Actually, I have to tell you something. We try to make Pesach relevant to our children, and so I took an idea that Rav Majdanek gave. I take news clips of current news and I give it to my children. And I say, connect it with Geula. So I'm not really connected to England anymore in any real way. Baruch Hashem, my parents made Aliyah, and I gave one child a couple of years ago a clip that it was the Queen's 60th something. It must have been 60th anniversary of being Queen or something. I don't know what it was. And my kids said, okay, we got no idea. What's this got to do with Geula? So everyone knows now because they made a film about it called The King's Speech. I don't know whether you're aware that Edward was a fanatic anti-Semite, an incredible supporter of Hitler. Had Edward been king, England would not have gone to war. No way. Churchill should be celebrated by every Jew. Churchill took the war to Hitler, and he was on his own in his understanding of who Hitler was and what he was doing. If that man had not abdicated, we thank the American woman that was the trigger for that. Had he not abdicated, he went to the Berghof. There was even a picture in an English newspaper 2 years ago of Edward teaching the Queen to do a Sieg Heil when she was a little girl. So it's harmless from her side, but he loved Hitler. And he wanted to build a German empire next to the English empire. Hitler didn't really have qualms with England, but Churchill wouldn't have it. The amount of anti-Semitism that was around in the world. So I sometimes say to my students, so the 6th of July is my English birthday. But I tell them it's your birthday too, because it's the day when Jews realize that we can't rely on anyone else, that we have no one. It's all of our birthdays. It's when we gain our independence. We understand that that conference gave the sign, if Hitler was looking for one, that he can do whatever he wants to do. He can do whatever he wants to do. I don't know whether you're aware of this. I'm not a great tourist, so I was in Manhattan with my wife. There was a Midrashah celebration, and I was bored of the lights or whatever. It doesn't really impress me so much, and so I went to a Barnes & Noble, right? Went to look for a good bookstore, have a look at books. That's what I did in Manhattan, and I found a book there, which was a collection of the front pages of Time magazine. Do you know who Man of the Year was in 1938 for Time magazine? Adolf Hitler, Man of the Year. Do you know that America never declared war on Germany? Germany declared war on America. And at the time, 70% of Americans didn't want to fight Germany. It's shocking. It's shocking when you understand how alone we stand and what that conference represents. And even today, that people dare call us Nazis. They dare, they look at our flag, they dare. They say they get bored of the subject, they don't want to hear it anymore. And it's a question whether Germany has a right to exist, bichlal. I'm one of these fanatical people. I was in England a few weeks ago. They didn't have the car. They wanted to give me a Mercedes. I said, no, I won't take a Mercedes. And the woman looked at, you won't take it? I'm upgrading you to a Mercedes. I won't drive a Mercedes. Now, I wasn't going to go through my ideology here, so I said, no, it's too big. I just said it's too big, I need a smaller car. But my sister's like, you're mad, she's giving you a Mercedes. I don't want a Mercedes, I'm not sitting in that car, I'm sitting in a Mercedes bus all week, but I'm not driving it. Each person has their own view. So that's one conference that I think is something very unique here, right? You look around here, I mean, these camps weren't built for us, they were here already and then extended, but it's incredible that people can. I would like to think that if I lived here, I wouldn't want to bring my baby for walks through this place, knowing what happened here. And if I didn't know what happened here, I would ask, what is this monument? What does it mean? And well, that's still here, right? So the other conference I want to relate to is something that moves us almost directly on to 68, 69, you said? 68, 69 in your books. It moves us directly on from Barbarossa, okay? We went to Treblinka, that was on our way, but now I want to take you back to Monday night, when Jeremy was finishing there in the forest. The truth of the matter is that the final solution really came into play. I don't think it was planned. It really came into play when the Germans saw what they could do in Russia. They saw what they could do. They could mow down Jewish. They didn't start by killing women and children. They started by killing Russian commissars and men. And then they started killing women and children. There wasn't an outcry at all. There wasn't an They buried bodies, and some of the Ukrainians dug up the bodies and took out the people's teeth. It's things that you just cannot believe. They dug up the bodies to get their teeth out. Nothing, no. I've seen interviews with these Ukrainians 40 years later without remorse of any kind. And what happened, the story goes as follows. I'm not sure how true it is, but we know that Himmler visited. The connection between the final solution and Hitler is Himmler. Before, because Hitler never went to any camps. That's what revisionists always speak about. But Himmler committed suicide when the British caught him. But Himmler went to camps. And Himmler was at a shooting in Minsk, and at that shooting, a piece of one of the people being shot, their brain apparently hit Himmler in the face. And it was very difficult for him not to vomit, not the right thing. He gives a chizuk speech to the chevra there, and it's a well-known speech. Whether this is what triggered his order to Heydrich was an evil, evil man. Heydrich was killed by Czech partisans in the spring of 1942. And after that, in retrospect, the operation was called Operation Reinhard, after Heydrich. Himmler decides that we're not going to be able to wipe out the Jewish people by shooting them. The shooters were drunk 24/7, drinking vodka and vodka and vodka. They were losing any kind of sentimental kin. They were killing men, women and children all the time, just all day. Tens of thousands. In Babi Yar, they killed 34,000 Jews in 2 days. And they're just killing people, lining them up and killing them. And he gives Heydrich the mandate to find a solution. Whenever people, when I was younger, they told me the final solution was fixed in Wannsee on January the 20th, 1942, but it wasn't. The final solution had already killed over 1.5 million Jews. What was done in the Wannsee conference, which I think you can see by the people who came to the Wannsee conference, the only man of real rank at the Wannsee conference was Reinhard Heydrich, and his man of Jewish affairs, who we know as Adolf Eichmann. Almost everyone around that table was a bureaucrat. The point of the Wannsee conference was to work out how to efficiently destroy the Jewish people. We have all the minutes of that conference. They made a film called Conspiracy, and Conspiracy is word for word the minutes of that conference. And one copy survived that, but that's all we need. And Heydrich knew exactly what he wanted, but he didn't start that way. Half of the conference is a discussion of who is a Jew, and if your grandfather, great-grandfather, about sterilizing Jews. But he wasn't interested in any of that, and he never did any of that. His main point was to get to killing Jews and how we're going to kill Jews. And that's what they decided on that day, that they were going to start gassing Jews, and they started gassing Jews in Chelmno, as you know, using reversed exhaust pipes into vans. And carbon monoxide in Treblinka, which is the same, right? And Treblinka was developed more. By the time we get to Auschwitz, it's Zyklon B, which was discovered in a totally different way. It was discovered by accident, actually. It kills bacteria, and they used it for cleaning clothes. And Hess was away, and his deputy tried it out on some Russians. It took them 3 days to die, the first experiment. He tried it out on Russians in a bunker in Auschwitz I. And it's a different kind of conference, but they have a lot to do with each other. One final comment, what I said last night, in my journey to try and discover myself, we discover ourselves not just by what we do, but also by what we don't do, by how we react to things or don't react to things, whether we care or we don't care. You see someone being rude and you say nothing. So kind of you don't think it's a problem. Or you see someone throwing garbage on the floor, you don't pick it up, you don't say anything to them. And I think that it's not proven, but the silence of the nations in Evian will eventually lead to that other conference. You know, we can do. When I was younger, they told me they never knew, and I was so engrossed by this, but maybe they never knew. So there used to be a newspaper. This is before internet. There used to be a newspaper museum in Colindale in London, and I went there one day, and I started looking up newspapers with one of those machines from 39, 41. Everything was reported. Everything was reported. We didn't know. It's just not true. It's just not true. People knew, and the information was there for people who wanted the information, and they chose not to do. And so this is one of the things that is different from Treblinka. It's a shocking place, a very hard place to define. Jeremy's about to try and define it for us. But that's when we get to the final solution, which eventually takes another 4 million Jews, if not more, in a way which is unbelievable. As Jeremy said, just the factories of death. And never, ever, whenever people say to me, other peoples have been massacred, I say, other peoples have not been run through factories and dismantled. And something I'll relate to in a minute, I'll speak about it a bit later on.